momentarily. Hate how it's not instantaneous when you click the broadcast button.
Yeah, sometimes it seems to start before it actually you click it, which is crazy.
That's weird. All right, so I am here with FriendEd. That's how you pronounce your YouTube moniker, right? It's not FriendEd.
People call me FriendEd. Some people call me Ed. My name is Adam, so
Okay.
you're free to call me anyone. Should I call you Richard or Mr. Gaines?
It doesn't really matter. All right, so I'm here with FriendEd. We're going to discuss, morality for the most part. That's what it sounds like. The ethics of eating meat. And TimJongUn is the moderator here. I guess you're not going to say hi?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? No, my screen's froze up for a second. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, so did you want to make your opening statement first?
Sure. I have watched a few of your videos, several of your debates, and I think that you completely outclass me in the health aspect of it, the dietary aspect of it. One of the reasons why I was interested in the vegan debate at all was because I've studied a bunch of moral psychology and a bunch of evolutionary psychology. So I'm interested in it from the morality perspective. So I just want to say off the bat that I respect the vegan goal. I think they want a world with less pain and suffering, and that is a goal I think most people can respect and relate to, and I myself can respect and relate to. So next, I just want to say, as a matter of tactics in these debates, whether it be social justice warriors or vegans or whoever's going at it on YouTube, one of the things that tends to bug me is people are constantly mischaracterizing the opposition's opinion or their stance. And I know that in the last video that I made a claim about the name the trait argument that humans and animals are morally identical. And people have given me flack for that. And I would like to rescind that claim because I do realize vegans acknowledge that there's some kind of like moral hierarchy going on where humans are higher than animals. And I think you would probably agree that where the contention is at the entitlement of life level of morality. And that's where you see humans and animals being identical. Like we're both entitled to life. Am I correct in that?
To some extent, I'd want to flesh that out a little more.
Okay,
but,
we can do that. So,
yeah.
So I just want to say that I made that claim. I made that video rather quickly. And if I had thought about it for a day or two, I probably would have taken that out of there. But since it's out there, I just thought I would rescind that. And last, I want to say that I know sometimes these debates can get passionate and, both sides can be at each other's throats. I just want to implore my subscribers not to attack your channel in any way or downvote your videos or anything like that.
All right, cool. Thanks. Right, so I did want to talk about you misrepresenting name the trait, but since this debate is going to focus on morality, there is a certain amount of subjectivity with morality, and I guess my goal for this debate is to either get you to agree that animals should have more rights or humans should have fewer rights. That's ultimately what I want to try to get you to admit. So why don't we talk about name the trait first of all, because you mentioned that vegans see animals as far as having a right to life basically on the same level as human beings. It's not exactly that simple. So the way I see it is, for the same reason you'd give a human the right to life, like you'd give an animal the right to life. So human beings are sentient, they can feel pain and suffering, they have a will to live. So for that same reason you'd respect a human being's right to life, you should also give that animal a right to life. Now, that doesn't mean an animal is morally equivalent to a human being. I'd still say in, say, a survival situation, it would be more ethical to kill and eat, like, say, a cow than a human being. But in like the situation that we're in, like, you know, we're living in modern Western civilization, we have access to grocery stores. There's not really any justification to take away an animal's right to life.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's easy for us to say. My big question is, in order to get from here to there, a lot of changes have to take place for society. And I'm not 100% convinced that those changes will actually be good for society.
Okay, so like what?
Well, there's, and you've talked about this in other debates, but there is a lot of our lives are wrapped up in the consumption of animal products. So all of that would have to change.
You mean on an industry level or just on average personal kind of level?
Personal level, and I mean industry level both. I mean, a lot of people have jobs that are wrapped up in there. I know that's not necessarily a good argument if we're talking morality, but just, I mean, if I've heard some vegans make the argument that people should be forced to kill and process their own meats. Have you made that argument yourself, or?
No, I've never made that actual argument. I mean, I'd see that. Like, usually what I do is I ask people, like, have you ever killed an animal? Would you want to kill an animal? And, you know, usually that leads to them saying, well, no, I obviously wouldn't do that.
Yeah, me too. I'm in that boat as well. So yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Okay, so like with this, like I think with this industry kind of argument, like, okay, well, it would cause a massive change. I mean, it's not the first time something like that has happened. I mean, like, what, there was asbestos that we used to use for insulation and I think even clothing. That industry in the United States completely went away. I mean, people lost their jobs because of it, but we did that because it was a huge public health issue and it was just the right thing to do. So you know, even though it would maybe be difficult because there are quite a lot of jobs and there's a lot of money involved in the animal products industry, I don't see that as a good enough justification to say, okay, well, maybe we should keep killing animals because, for one thing, it is actually a public health issue. It's one of the leading, well, I'd say it's the leading causes of chronic disease worldwide. And also it's just the more moral thing to do.
So I think that's where your strongest argument is on the health issue, and the asbestos analogy is a good one, but there's also these huge cultural changes that I'm more skeptical can be made smoothly. I've used the argument in various debates that, you know, people hunt and fish and that is a part of their lives, and they, you know, they raise their children, and, you know, their dad did it, their granddad did it, it goes back for generations. And those people would have to stop all of those activities, as well as there's a huge holiday component where people spend the holidays together, engaging in family activities, that a lot of it is around food, and a lot of those foods are meat. So the cultural aspects that would need to change, I think, are more problematic than the actual health issues. So that's the thing that I'm worried about.
I don't really think so. What, we already have stuff like Gardein, Beyond Meat. We already have like really good meat substitutes. Also Tofurkey. They've become a lot better in recent years too with their meat substitutes. So like really now, if you go to a grocery store, you pick out a good meat substitute and you do a blind taste test, I really doubt anybody would be able to pick out like, oh, that's the vegan stuff. Also, what was it? I can't remember what company was trying to do it, but they were claiming that in the next like few years, like 2-3 years, they're going to have lab-grown meat, and that's going to become a reality soon too. I don't think that's really too far off. So you'd basically be able to get any kind of meat you want, pretty much. So as far as people changing their lifestyle and culture, I don't think that would really be too big of an impact, because they can either get meat substitutes or get something that's like artificially grown. Hunting would really be the only thing that I could see being a huge cultural impact. Like the food itself wouldn't be a big deal. Well, with that,
would you mind it if that was, because hunting and fishing is such a small part of the equation? Would that be?
Well, I mean, just go up to like you can go into a McDonald's and ask people what they think of hunting. Like most people just hate hunters.
Yeah, totally.
Even though they eat meat. So,
I'm with you.
I'd imagine it would affect a very small group of people, and for those people, I mean, just because it's a cultural thing, that doesn't mean it justifies what you're doing. I mean, Japan, I think Sweden too, like they kill whales, and pretty much the whole world is against that sort of thing, and they'll use culture as an argument. I don't see that as a good justification. Like there's indigenous tribes people in the Amazon rainforest who literally get children to give them blowjobs and swallow their semen every single day for them to become a man. That's part of their culture. Like does culture justify that sort of thing?
That's a Zambian tribe. I've heard that. It's like total. Yeah,
it's messed up.
That's not my culture.
So yeah, like I wouldn't say culture is really a reasonable argument for that sort of thing. Like every sort of generation goes through this sort of cultural shift. Like, I mean, we had slavery, we had racism, like we evolved to a point where we recognize those things are bad. Culture and tradition doesn't really justify those things. And now we're in a period where we're starting to realize, okay, well, you know, eating meat and killing it and hunting and killing animals, it's just not something that we should keep doing.
So the pushback that you're going to get from the hunters and the fishers are definitely the NRA types that are, I mean, they do it. They don't want to lose that liberty. So, I mean, one of the arguments that I was making with Tim, and I did a stream a few days ago with Tim and Jack Green about, you know, just kind of getting their ideas. Actually, I wanted to, you've heard of steel manning, like it's the opposite of straw manning. Everyone constantly accuses everyone of straw manning. I was trying to get them to help me kind of steel man this name the trait argument. And I was trying to kind of make a bid with them to get off the moral argument as much, because man, people are funny about morality, and it just, if you make everything a moral argument, then it's difficult to push for compromise in the areas where you can get compromise. Because if you were going to trade some substantial gains in the animal agriculture industry for hunting and fishing, which is such a minute part of what is involved in the animal agriculture industry. I mean, if you're making a moral argument, it makes it very difficult to make that compromise and still, you know, keep your dignity or respect, or, well, I guess those are strong terms, but it's really very difficult to make those exchanges. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know what you're really talking about. Like, I mean, if we're talking about animal agriculture and hunting, like there are moral arguments against those things, and there's also practical arguments.
Sure, totally.
You know, but it's terrible for the environment, bad for health, so on and so forth. Like I always make those arguments along with the moral argument.
Right. If you could wave a magic wand today and make substantial gains in the animal agriculture industry, but you were sworn to never make another gripe about hunting and fishing, could you make that exchange?
Like my end goal is to end all unnecessary forms of animal abuse, exploitation, murder, suffering.
So you couldn't make that exchange?
No, I wouldn't. Like my long-term goal is to end all unnecessary.
I know, but that goal will require steps. Am I wrong?
Yeah, it will.
And we are moving towards that goal, are we not?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that.
Well, you're creating a hypothetical situation where
totally
there's like a brick wall.
Okay, that's fine. So I made a video in the very beginning of this, and I put a definition of morality in that video. Can I read that definition?
Go ahead.
Because a lot of what vegans are saying, they say things here. Let me look at my notes real quick. They say things like moral value, moral weight, and that turns morality into like a quantity thing. Like they're talking about humans being above other animals, which is another quantity thing, a height thing. And I'm just curious what your definition of morality is. The definition that I used in the original video is from Jonathan Haidt, and it's from a book that's actually an interesting book that separates ethics and morality. I don't know if you listened to the debate that I had with Ask Yourself, but he was very clear to separate different propositions into normative propositions or descriptive propositions. And a normative description is kind of like this is the way that it should be, and a moral and a descriptive is more just like this is scientifically the way it is. So this book separates ethics into like the content of a moral system. Like I will not eat bacon on Sunday, or whatever the content of that moral system is. Different moral systems have different content. And morals, some researchers separate morality into kind of a descriptive thing. And this definition is describing morality without making a judgment on what the content is. Like the content of your morality would be, don't kill animals. That's one of your moral rules. That's the content. The content of other non-vegan morality is it's okay to kill animals, but don't be cruel to them. So the definition is moral systems are interlocking sets of values, practices, institutions, and evolved psychological mechanisms that work together to suppress or regulate selfishness and make social life possible. And all that means is this collection of rules that we follow helps us form these communities. And like the vegan community is very much a community with its own set of rules and guidelines.
Okay, I get what you're kind of talking about social contract now.
Yeah, totally. So all of us well, you're Canadian, I believe. I'm American. Yeah. So all of us have our nation's social contract. I'm in a different social contract than you because you're in a different nation. But humanity has a social contract as well. Most people consider conceptually. It's not necessarily on paper. Sometimes it is on paper. Actually, I bet the UN has it on paper. So yeah, that is the way that I am looking at morality. Morality is a set of rules that binds people into these groups. Now with Name the Trait, I made my trait that animal, like there are these moral communities, and animals that we eat are not inside those moral communities. And that's the trait that allows us to eat them, because there are animals that are inside the moral community. There
like
are
dogs.
Pets. Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay.
And there are also criminals. Like someone could be in the moral community today and booted out on their ass tomorrow and sent to the electric chair. So that distinction works for both humans and animals. So
okay, well, I understand like perfectly what you're saying, that morality is governed to a large extent by social contract. What was I going to say? Well, first of all, the issue here is you could have a social contract that allows you to really do anything. Like you can just arbitrarily decide, okay, well, this person or these group of people aren't within our social contract. They're black, so we can enslave them. So the thing here is you're kind of skipping a step with how you determine something how you're determining whether or not something has moral value. and you're talking about like moral value, quantifying morality in some way. Like, we just have to do that, like, practically speaking. Like, if a firefighter had to, go into a burning building and they only had time to save like a little girl or an 80-year-old man, like, you're going to have to make some sort of judgment call and quantify like morality in some way, like giving
How
someone
would we
life
make that
value.
judgment call? That's a great example between the old
Well,
man
well,
and
again,
the little girl, right? We're
yeah,
agreed
yeah.
there, correct?
Well,
But
I mean,
why do we pick the little girl?
well, because she has her life ahead of her. The old man kind
Totally.
of is basically going to
Yeah.
die. Like, there's a logical way to
utility.
determine.
Yeah,
There's a
utility
logical
question.
way to determine moral value. The thing is, there is a huge utility in having a social contract, but the way social contract arises in the first place is because of empathy. And there are rodent studies that pretty much prove this beyond any reasonable doubt. I mentioned this wasn't my Jordan Peterson video. I think it was a response to Destiny, where I actually used a lecture that Jordan Peterson made. If you take a bunch of rats and you put one rat in a part of the cage where it's basically drowning, and you take another rat into another part of the cage where it can actually save the other rat, and you reward the rat in the part of the cage where he isn't drowning for not saving the drowning rat, the rat will actually save the other rat while refusing to take any sort of reward, like a piece of chocolate or something. So the rat will actually choose to save a fellow rat out of empathy. And what's especially interesting is if a rat has had the experience of drowning itself, it will more quickly save the other rat. And if the rat has been socialized with that same breed of rat, it will more likely save the other rat. You can actually take a rat of, like, say, like a white rat, raise it with a bunch of black rats. Because it's being socialized more with those black rats, it's more likely to save a black rat from drowning than a white rat, because it's actually being socialized more with black rats. So empathy is really the cornerstone of what we consider moral. And, like, again, this is why if you walk into McDonald's and ask people what they think about hunting, they'll say, like, I fucking hate hunters. They're like killing animals for no reason. We've been conditioned in the society to, love pet dogs, cats. I don't know what other animals like people keep as pets. And we're socialized with those animals, and it's very easy for us to empathize with them. How many people have like pet or cows or chickens? It's harder for people to empathize with those animals because, one thing, they haven't had any real social contact with them. And secondly, like, the industry is so far removed from, your normal daily life. Like, you don't actually see these animals being slaughtered. You don't even see like the full carcass of the animal when you're in the grocery store. It's like these neat cut up pieces of meat without any blood on them. So I'd say the cornerstone of morality is empathy, not social contract. And, like, just to prove the point, if somebody steals something, would you behead them?
Steal something? If it's my Ferrari, maybe, I suppose.
Yeah. If they stole your Ferrari, you'd behead them?
I don't have a Ferrari, but
Right.
hypothetically, if they stole my Ferrari, I might. Hold on, is it an old guy? Is he over 80?
Like, the point is,
if it's a young girl, I'm not going to behead her.
Well,
okay.
The point is, like, we create these laws, that maintain order and, punish people for not following the social contract. But, like, okay, somebody broke the social contract. Well, would you torture them to death? Well, no, because in that situation, if you did something like that, you wouldn't want that to happen to you. Empathy.
Yes.
So social contract doesn't, it's not the cornerstone of morality, and it doesn't determine a being's moral value, whether or not they are within your social contract or whether or not they can even agree to any kind of social contract or conceptualize it or whatever. It's really empathy. And it's especially for a human being who's intelligent enough to understand that, okay, this is another sentient being that can think and feel. Like it's very easy for us to empathize, which is why if you take any random person off the street and you put a chicken in front of them and told them to kill the chicken, they'd be like, no, why would I kill the chicken? It's like nice.
Yeah, I couldn't do
right?
it. Definitely.
Yeah.
So 3 points on what you were saying. One, the first on, let me take the second one first. The socialization thing. They vegans talk about, well, everyone talks about socialization. I really think they're using socialization as a proxy for the moral value thing. I think it's more difficult for us to kill and eat animals that we feel this empathy that you're talking about too. And that empathy is through a social process. I think one of the reasons why Americans are just disgusted by the killing of the dolphins that they do, I think it's in China or is it Japan? I'm not sure. But one of the reasons why Americans are trying to stop that and have been trying to stop it for years is because dolphins are social animals. Like a lot of us grew up on Flipper and like we've all been to animal parks where we've seen these animals. So it's very hard for us. Like this is why Americans and Canadians don't eat dog. It's because a lot of us have had dogs and grown up with dogs. So I think that that socialization, when I think a lot of times people talk about sentience or intelligence, and I really don't think those are accurate for what's going on inside people's heads. I think it's really about socialization. So that's one thing. The animal, you want to
just to add to that, I think socialization makes it easier to empathize, and I think that that's pretty clear with the rodent studies. Like, you know, the rats will save the other rats, you know, that they've socialized with, whereas with the rats they haven't socialized with, they're a little more hesitant. So again, empathy, I'd still say, is the cornerstone of morality, and like it's much easier to empathize with a creature that's a little more closely related to your own species, that you can kind of anthropomorphize a bit easier.
Mammals, they're all warm-blooded.
Yeah, like I mean that's obviously an evolutionary adaptation. So like a dolphin, it's a little more closer to a human being than a cockroach or a fish.
Yeah, definitely.
So like I think that's an aspect there, but I also don't think that's a justification to kill like a fish or a cockroach for no justifiable reason.
So the next thing is animals in the grocery store. You mentioned how we're very distant from the processes that go on, and many of us would be disgusted if we set foot in a slaughterhouse. I'd be willing to bet 99% of the people would be disgusted if they set foot in a slaughterhouse. The thing that I think vegans may not be giving any credit, and I wonder about, is if we are a less violent society because of that. That when we lived in a society where people were forced to kill whatever they were going to eat, it desensitized them to violence in a way that made it easier to settle scores or disputes with other human beings in a violent way. And now that we are so separated from that violence happens elsewhere, and you know, we get this nice neat little package in the grocery store. Even better, you know, we go to a restaurant, we don't even see the preparation of it. That has contributed to us becoming a more peaceful people, and I think that's a trade-off that not many people consider. So
I think it's possible. Like a huge like risk factor or a huge sign that someone, a child's going to be a sociopath or is a psychopath, is abusing animals, like especially torturing them and killing them. Yeah, maybe killing animals kind of desensitizes you to violence of all forms, which wouldn't really surprise me because, again, these are sentient beings that can think and feel. And if you can just easily, kill these animals, then I'm sure that would be an easier stepping stone to killing a human being.
Right. So the last thing is, you're saying empathy is the cornerstone of morality. And according to the research that's been done, there are actually 6 different types of moral intuitions that we all have and we all use to form these moral communities. And the first one is care harm, which is what you're talking about, empathy. We're all mammals. We all have these evolutionarily based attachment systems where, we feel for our children, we feel for our family, we feel for our kin, our tribe. And that is probably the biggest one that's used. But there are plenty of others that keep us from getting in tit for tat, retribution, justice with one another until the cows come home, when it was a more violent time. And those intuitions, I can just read them off for you. It's like fairness, cheating, which is based on reciprocal altruism. We see this in nature as well. There's loyalty, betrayal, which is very important for building, militaries and other organizations, as is authority subversion. And we see that in primates all the time. We see it in chickens with the pecking order, right? Sanctity degradation is based on humans' disgust feeling a lot of times. And they've done studies on this. When people feel disgusted by something, they immediately feel that it's immoral. This is why a lot of social conservatives have the feelings that they do towards homosexuality or other sexual acts. And, liberals that have a lower disgust sensitivity, they're like, it's no big deal, right? And the last is liberty oppression, which in my last video, I mentioned that really what's going on here is you're playing people's empathy, and people do empathize, off their feeling of wanting the meat. Like, I don't have to do anything to get it. It's barely any effort on my part. It's delivered in the nice, clean package, as you say. So they don't want to lose a right that they're getting now. So you're saying care harm is the only, well, you're saying it's the bedrock, which I will agree with. It is virtually the bedrock, but all of these other intuitions are at play here.
Okay,
and very much in politics and morality and religion and all these things. You need all of these.
Right. You mentioned disgust.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you think if people saw slaughter, see how animals get murdered, do you think they'd be kind of disgusted?
I think probably 50% of the people that are vegans.
50.
Well, maybe 80% are because of exactly what you're saying. They've seen a slaughterhouse or.
Well, I wouldn't say that's just vegans.
What is your guess? Just what do you think it is?
Oh, I think vast
90%.
Something around that range, like above 90%.
Right.
Like if they saw how animals are killed, they'd be disgusted. Even if it's
Right.
like humane slaughter on a free range bullshit farm, like, you know what? There's no nice way of shooting a cow in the head and then slitting its throat open.
No, not at all. We've all grown up with pets and animals, so we all know.
Like I understand what you're trying to argue. You're basically saying, okay, well, empathy isn't the only thing that we have to consider with what we consider moral. I still don't understand how this makes the jump to it's okay to needlessly shoot a pig in the head, slit its throat open.
The people who you're arguing against, if you think of these moral foundations like, senses, and you're only focused on one sense, all you can do is see, but you can't hear or taste or smell. And these people have all of their senses. They're, seeing the world in a different way. And what we never got into what is the moral value thing.
Well, Adam, to be fair, if I can interrupt, his question was directly about how any of these arguments justify the consumption of meat.
Yeah,
they don't. The people that will argue against that don't need. They will say they'll have the status quo on their side, and they'll say we don't need to justify it. We have always done it, which I realize is an appeal to nature fallacy, right?
Well, appeal to tradition, really.
Yeah, but in the
tradition,
in the same way, you're trying to move the ball from people doing what they say is moral, and if we're judging morality by, I mean, this is a constant argument that I get with the objective morality people. Like, if you want to say morality is objective, I am with you 100%.
Well, I'm not saying it's objective.
No. Okay, I'm just saying for the sake of argument. If somebody's saying that morality is objective, if we apply a measuring stick, if we say, okay, morality binds people into these communities, and if that community produces more offspring, then that means it's better than this other community, then we can evaluate the morality on that basis, right? You might get crazy moralities, as like Sam Harris and others have talked about, where, you know, everybody's just like a baby making machine, right? It's very tough to tell how you want to judge that morality. But a lot of times we tend to judge those moralities on, you know, human happiness, human flourishing, I think is what Sam Harris does. But you want to make it all. You want to make it all animals. You want to include animal flourishing in that human flourishing, and other people don't want to do that.
It's like you're trying to delve sort of into meta ethics, and I don't think that's really necessary. Like, again, I'd say the idea of animal rights just stems from the idea of human rights. Like, do you believe in the idea of human rights, that humans should have a right to live?
Yes.
Okay. Like, okay, so then we don't have to really have a discussion about, like, what is right and wrong? Like, what makes us decide whether or not something's right or wrong? Is it empathy? Is it discuss? Like, there's no point. Okay, so you already agree that humans should have a right to life, and why is that? Like, can you explain to me why?
I would say for me, it has to do with social contract. It has to do with the fact that I wouldn't want to take another human being from their family. I know that there are people out there that will miss that person. And like in the example of the young
empathy
girl and the old man, like an old man is going to be less missed. Maybe he's got, you know, less friends that are still alive. A young girl has her whole family and yeah, she's socially embedded. She has a future. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're explaining,
my empathy, I don't have the same empathy for the girl that I do for a chicken. Like,
right. I wouldn't disagree with that. And I don't think that's necessarily a wrong thing.
Right.
But just because you have less empathy for a chicken than, you know, a little girl, like, does that justify you murdering the chicken? Like, I know
it's
like,
not murder. It's not murder, but it does. Yes.
Like, I know, it's like, for me, for instance, it's very, very difficult for me to empathize with people. Like, I've talked about this in past videos. Like, I've had huge issues with antisocial personality disorder, like sociopathy. I mean, even still, I could just like tear somebody to pieces.
You should write a book, man. A lot of people are writing.
Well,
a lot of psychopaths are writing books now.
Well, the thing is, like, I can just use my reasoning skills, just plain common sense. Like, okay, would I want that to happen to me? No. So it's hypocritical for me to do that to somebody. Like, you can't just do that to a chicken. Like, okay, if I was a chicken, would I want this to happen to me? If the answer is no, then it's hypocritical for you to do that to a chicken.
So you make an interesting point about the empathy with humans, that you have an easier time empathy. You have more empathy for animals than you do humans. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So I would argue that it's tough to pin you as a psychopath, because psychopaths don't give a care in the world for animals.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of psychopaths start their psychopathy by burning cats and like doing just horrific things, right?
Right.
So I don't think that that's going on with you. I think you have a tough time empathizing with non-vegans, which is very
no, that's actually not true. I do actually have a fairly close friend who hunts. He's a photographer friend of mine. And
okay,
we have friendly debates and discussions like in person about this sort of thing.
Okay, then I mean that would be very normal. People have trouble empathizing with people that are in outgroups, especially people that are, you know, not behaving in ways that they feel are moral or that they feel are immoral. So maybe it's not happening with you. So do you want to move on to the name, the trait, housekeeping? Because in my stream with Ask Yourself kept trying to show that my moral group argument has a contradiction in it, and I don't think there's a contradiction in it at all. And I had a friend kind of help me explain it a little better than I did explaining it with Ask Yourself.
Okay, well, why don't you explain your moral group argument?
Okay, so the moral group argument is that name the trait, ask you to name a trait that separates humans and animals, right? And if you take that trait and take it from the animal or the human, you swap it between the two, it changes their place. Is that a good assessment of it?
Of name the trait?
Yeah, name the trait.
Okay, I don't think that's the best example.
Okay,
of it. So, okay, so why don't we give animals the right to vote?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's because they're not intelligent enough to even understand the voting process. Like, that's basically the main reason.
But we have people that vote that aren't intelligent enough.
Well, right. Like, okay, I'm not just talking about general idiots.
No, I understand.
There's groups of people who are trying to make it so like people who are severely mentally retarded, like somebody with Down syndrome or something, can't vote. Usually those things, like usually this thing doesn't really go through because like it offends a lot of people.
Yeah, let them vote. Jeez.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money, and really like the amount of time and money spent trying to get that bill passed, like who with Down syndrome is really going to vote? So
yeah,
that sort of thing just doesn't get passed. But like just for the sake of argument, you wouldn't give an animal the right to vote because they're not intelligent enough. They're not capable of language. They can't understand the political system. It would be perfectly reasonable to ban voting to somebody with the same intellectual capacity as a cow. Like, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm in favor of letting the Down syndrome people vote, but
well, like, let's say somebody had the same intellectual capacity as a cow. They would you say they should have a right to vote?
Yes, I think there are plenty of people that are voting that have the intellectual capacity of a cow.
Okay,
so,
like, are you answering seriously?
Well, no, I am honestly. I don't think intelligence is a really good metric because I'm
not just talking about intelligence. I mean intelligence, ability.
They're not in the in group is I think the right answer. You wouldn't let someone who wasn't in your in group vote. Like you wouldn't let someone who wasn't in your nation vote. Like we don't let foreigners vote. We don't let convicted criminals vote.
That's just because they're not really part of the culture.
Yeah,
are convicted criminals not allowed to vote?
Not in America. Not in.
Okay, yeah. I've never heard of that in Canada. But
yeah, I don't know. We boot them out of the group, man. We take away a lot of their rights. Okay,
well, since we can't agree on the mentally retarded voting thing, I'll just explain it with murder. Okay, so like, let's say your argument was it's okay to murder a cow because they're not nearly intelligent or sentient enough to have a right to life. So if you wanted to eat a steak, like the cow has such low intelligence and sentience that there's no moral value to it. It's okay to kill it. Well, if a human were to have the intelligence and sentience of a cow, that would therefore justify murdering that human. And if you disagreed with that, that would create a double standard. So that's basically what name the trait is. You have to point to a trait difference between a human and a non-human animal that, if present in or lacking in a human, would also justify killing a human.
Right, and that would be in-group. That would be the in-group. And the way that I have it set up is there are these two moral axioms. So if you have a group that has killing within that moral group is wrong, and the axiom killing any human is wrong, that group has the capacity to get around this name the trait argument. Because if a person is in that group, you can't kill them. And if an animal is in that group, you can't kill them. But if a person is out of that group, you can kill them. And if an animal is out of that group, you can kill them. And the case of the human being outside that group would be the criminals that we talked about. And the case of the animal being in that group would be like there's sacred cows, there's pets, there's all kinds of animals that are
okay. So if somebody stole a watch from a store, it's okay to behead them?
Well, that would be an extreme, and this, then we're going down to the fine detail of the social contract.
Like, again, it's almost as if you're sort of delving into meta ethics again. Like, if you can agree that, okay, it's wrong to kill a human if they steal a watch, like we're agreeing on these basic moral principles. Like, okay, right, it's wrong to just unjustifiably kill a human being. I don't understand like how you can say it's okay to just kill an animal. Like, clearly, being in an in-group or out-group or breaking a social contract doesn't devalue a person to the level of a cow.
It depends upon what the breakage of the social contract is, obviously, because we have different levels of that. There's murder, manslaughter, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, right. And that's a good point, too, because what has a cow, chicken, pig, fish done to you that's so horrible that would justify killing them? Like, a human being killing another human being, that's pretty bad, and you could use that to justify ending their life, especially if it's, like, first-degree murder. So, like, has a cow killed you or one of your family members or anybody?
God, I would get even with that cow so quick. No, that hasn't happened. And the animals, I mean, I'm willing to give you, the animals are, for all intents and purposes, by our social standards, innocent. And one of the reasons why we don't let them in the moral community or in the community or under the social contract or give them the rights, whatever you want to call it, is because we know eventually they're going to be killed and eaten. So, I mean,
well, we do let them into the social contract and moral community. Like you mentioned, we have pets.
Yeah, we do.
Well, listen. Okay. Certain countries have like sacred animals, like India has the cow.
Totally. Yeah, they don't kill cows there.
Listen, if you could let a dog into your social contract, what's the difference between a dog and a pig that would justify killing a pig? And like, it's within, it's common knowledge that a pig is actually more intelligent than a dog even. So, like, do you just get to arbitrarily decide who's in your in-group and who's in your out-group? I don't like the way that guy looks. He has pink skin. He doesn't have a spot around his eye, and he doesn't have a big, long, waggly tail. I'm going to kill that dude. Like,
it is tough because
it sounds inconsistent.
Well, morality is somewhat arbitrary. If you think about,
well, I'd say it's subjective.
Why do some religions not allow eating bacon? That's totally arbitrary, right?
No. It's because of the disgust thing that you were talking about.
Oh, okay. But that happened a long time ago, right? But now it's kind of arbitrary.
No, it's just because this is a cultural thing. It's just wisdom that's inherited, you know, over time. Well, the same thing with sexuality. Like, a lot of religions prohibit sexuality, and it's because of disgust. Like, syphilis has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and it's even passed down, you know, to children. And if you've ever seen a child with syphilis, it's like the most horrible thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Well, you know, these cultures develop disgust around sex, and then people who are virgins are, like, you know, looked up upon. And, you know, if you're you know, sex outside of marriage is really prohibited, and it really promotes, you know, monogamous relationships. Like, that's just, it's basically a survival mechanism. Like, that's why that's happening. So I wouldn't say it's arbitrary. Like, again, there's logical, explainable reasons for why we see things as immoral and why we develop these moral systems. It's not like we, you know what, I think it's immoral to wear the color blue. Like, we don't
necessarily know. I think of it a lot in terms of like evolution. Like, evolution is blind, deaf, and dumb, right? A mutation happens rather arbitrarily, and sometimes it's useful, and that mutation passes down. I mean, you can think of moral groups the same way. Like, some moral group can come up with some crazy adaptation, like turn the other cheek. Who would ever turn the other cheek, right? Get even. That's what I feel. But all of a sudden, you know, people are trying to turn the other cheek, and it's working. I mean, the slavery comes up a lot in these vegan debates, and I mean, I'm completely with you, and it's a good example how the moral contract has changed over time for the better. There's nothing to say, though, that maybe they did away with slavery and things actually got worse, or maybe they came up with something, you know, different. Maybe it's not slavery, but, you know, they came up with the 5-day weekend, and the 5-day weekend was a more moral way to live, and everyone tried it out, and that society died out because everyone was siestaing 5 days a week. So these different moral communities try different things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Like, I mentioned that us being separated from the actual slaughter has likely made us a more peaceful people who are more turned off, more disgusted by violence. And that's a useful thing, because you don't want people going out and getting drunk and beating the shit out of each other for fun, or because somebody looked at me wrong, right? So that good thing was kind of just a byproduct of this other thing that was completely unrelated. So things like that happen. And the thing that is interesting about this to me is, I think things are going in your direction. I think technology will step up and come in to make these things, to make meat products and eating meat less and less and less. But I don't know that it is ever going to go away completely. And most of it, I think, is because of the hunting and fishing thing. More fishing than anything, because a lot of people fish, and fishing is a huge industry. And I mean, I don't necessarily know that there's, well, I understand the moral argument that you're making against fish, but I just don't think it's as, like, fish to me is an organic robot. So
okay, so before we go off on too far of a tangent with fish and hunting and all that, can we get back to focusing on the topic that Richard had brought up in regards to how you decide, or how it's decided what organisms belong in a social contract?
Yeah. Okay. Just like before you go, first of all, I have to pee. So
okay,
if you can give me 10 seconds after this. But you tend to kind of like delve into like these weird meta-ethical discussions, like where morality even comes from. Like, again, we can already agree upon things like humans should have rights. It's wrong to needlessly kill people. Like, rather than talking about the nature of ethics, like, why don't we just go off from there? If you've already made like basic assumptions on, you know, your moral systems, like, why can't we just go on from there and talk about why animals can't be included within that ethical system rather than delving into meta ethics.
Okay.
Like
I'm down with that.
Like it's just very strange. Like you only encounter these arguments when you're talking about meat eating. Like if we were going to talk about pedophilia, like why it's wrong to rape children, like would you say, why do we develop these moral systems? Like, is it wrong to rape children?
It's more obvious with pedophilia.
Yeah,
that's why nobody's having
I mean, you're kind of talking about irrelevant crap, and it just seems like you're trying to avoid, these questions because they're difficult.
I'm not trying to avoid. I'm not
Yeah,
trying to avoid.
I'm just saying.
So. I will answer them for myself, and I will also give my opinion on why I think other people answer the way they do.
Yeah, totally. Just let me pee, and then I'll let you talk. I'll just be back in like 10 seconds.
Okay.
Your time at 10 seconds.
Yeah, whatever. 20.
All right, just to let everyone know, we're at about an hour in right now.
Yeah, how long are we going to go? I have a bunch of moral questions as well. I don't know that we're going to get to it.
Well, if you want to make sure we get to your questions, morality, we can stop it at a certain time. Like, how long do you want to go? Really, is the question. You and
maybe another 20 minutes. I don't know. Feels like.
Okay, because I mean, I don't want to go milk jar.
No, I'm jumping.
That was a little too much.
No.
What's the milk jar thing? I don't know about that.
You didn't see that? Oh, you got to watch that. That's like.
Oh, I watched part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 4.5 hours long though.
Okay. Yeah. No, we don't want to.
It was intense.
We don't want to do that. Yeah.
So, and if you're interested in any time statistics right now, you've been speaking for roughly 4 minutes longer than Richard.
Really? Oh, that's good. That's good. So, it's not too far off. So.
No, it's been pretty close. That's why I've been mostly silent.
Oh, all right.
I feel Richard's close to his breaking point though, so I think he's gonna start. He's getting ready. I can see the look in his eye.
What? Getting pissed off?
I'm what do we call it, Tim? It's razzle dazzle.
Razzle dazzle. Keep those safeties on.
That's hilarious. I hope you saw the thumbnail I did for you. I have the tank in mind. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So you want to ask me questions. This is ask yourself. It was giving me a hard time about the same thing, and Tim gives me a hard time. Jack is giving me a hard time. They're like, we want to know about you. What about you? You're talking about everybody else. So go ahead. I'll answer whatever you want.
Like I think, especially in these sorts of debates, like it's easy to kind of appeal to the majority of what everyone thinks. Like,
sure.
Yeah. Especially when we're talking.
It's easier on me. It's easier on me because there's no social pressure on me.
Like, especially when we're talking about morality, like it's just inherently a subjective topic. So
totally.
I think you do sort of have an obligation to talk about like what you think about personally.
For me, it's I just could never do it. I could never do it. I eat chicken a lot, and I have no feelings for chicken whatsoever. I see chicken as just like biological robots. I see fish the same way. I see them as a product that we've developed. I definitely see them as a product. I don't see them as a living animal. But the characteristic that works for me is that the sociality thing. Like if they're like, I could never eat dolphin. I could never eat, dog or cat or anything like that. Tim is giving me a hard time about pigs. He says they're very social, and I feel that, but I love the taste of pork. So I mean, it would be difficult for me. It would definitely be difficult for me. So, and there's no social pressure on me to do it. So,
right. But do you think that's actually a reasonable justification to?
Yeah, I think it's moral. I think it's moral,
really?
Ethical. Yeah, I think it's completely.
Just because it would be sort of difficult for you, and you're not really able to personally empathize with these animals.
I don't extend the do unto others to chickens and fish and pigs and cows. I don't extend that doing to others to them.
Well, why do you think it's reasonable to not extend that sort of thinking?
It's a dog eat dog world, and they are subjugated to us.
Okay, so might makes right.
We are in the authority position here. We are, yeah.
So might makes right.
In this case, yeah, but not in every.
In this case, why is it only in this case that might makes right?
Because as human beings, we're team human. So.
Okay, well, you're just kind of making. You're arbitrarily.
No, it's not a good argument. I'm telling you,
like it is pretty arbitrary. Like you're kind of making, like you can do this endlessly. Like place people into groups or teams, team human, team black people, like team Nigerians. Like you can endlessly break people down into teams. Like I mean, okay, team Nazis versus team Jews. Might makes right in that situation.
No, not at all. But it does.
Okay.
It does descriptively fit everything that I've talked about. I mean, you're getting into, and this is the thing about forming these groups, because we really are talking about what's best for the future and what's good for now. Like you're saying, we live in a stable society, all that, we could do without meat products that would be just fine. If society falls apart and we're forced to take steps back to where we're not prepared for, then maybe it was a mistake to go in this direction. So, I mean, I'm weary of this, but I will admit that it's just, for me, it's you guys are fond of saying taste pleasure. Yes. Right. Well, there is just as much on the worry about taste displeasure side of the ledger as there is on the taste pleasure side of the ledger, because I'm not convinced that if I adopted veganism, my life wouldn't be a living hell. So there's that as well.
Okay, well, first of all, you talked about what if society like broke down and then we had to eat meat again.
That's a terrible argument anyway. But
yeah, well, it is, because if you've ever seen Liberia, society broke down, nobody had any food, and people were literally eating each other. Yeah. There was no food available, and there were dead bodies everywhere. Yeah. And I think even to this day, there's issues with cannibalism there, because people
oh my god,
kill
they got
somebody to sell. No, like it was actually pretty recent, like mid 2000s. Like there's some warlord in Liberia who like literally killed and ate people during the civil wars. Oh, and he became some reformed Christian. It was all about peace. So like he got away with all the war crimes he committed. But he was so familiar with the taste of human flesh,
oh my god,
that he actually bought meat from somebody, and he said, he went to the police officers, he said, that's human flesh, and they looked into it. He actually killed a bunch of people. So even to this day, eating people there happens.
This is actually one of my.
Sorry, go ahead. Is it okay to eat people? Like, because what if society broke down and we had to eat people? So is it wrong to kill and eat people now? Well, obviously not, because if you have to kill and eat people, you have to kill and eat people, and that justifies it for every context.
So I admitted that argument is a shit argument, and this actually is one of the moral questions that I cooked up. I was going to ask you, like, the involuntariness of it is what bothers people, but like, is voluntary human organ selling for human consumption morally wrong? Would you agree with that?
Voluntary.
Yeah. So suppose this warlord was like, yeah, he's on eBay, I'm going to give you like $200,000. You got 2 kidneys. Give me one of them. Like, I got a taste for human flesh.
Well, there is organ dealing. Like,
I know, on the black market.
Well, like people pay for it because they have like fucked up kidneys or whatever.
But this is different. You're not saving someone's life. This is just so some guy can have a meal. I mean, it's closer to what you're talking about with the cow situation.
You know what? I don't know, like maybe I think differently if somebody gave me like a good argument against it, but I think you should really have full control over your own body. Like,
Really?
I think prostitution should be legal. I mean,
so then you're way on the liberty side. So then that's the argument that I'm making with the
thing
chickens.
is,
Like, it's freedom.
no, like listen, like usually when we create laws, we try to extend personal liberties as far as possible.
Totally.
While not interfering with the freedoms and liberties of others. So slavery would be a no-no. Like, I mean, okay, a law that prevents you from owning a slave, that interferes with your own personal rights of owning a slave, but it also protects everyone's rights. So
human rights,
free life, right? So like same with murder, like that's how these laws are kind of set up. So if you're killing and eating animals, you're interfering with their freedom, just like you're interfering with human beings' freedom. So I don't see that as a reasonable justification saying, well, it interferes with my own liberty, because you could literally make that exact same argument with slavery, killing.
You can't make that same argument with a human, though.
Yeah.
You can't.
Sorry? No,
you can't make
Why?
that same argument with a human. Because it's a human being. I mean, you can make that same argument with a human, but people don't make that argument, and I'm not making that argument.
Right. Okay, well, I'm saying you can.
Let's try to keep the focus on veganism. I think we were going to try to talk about Adam's subjective views in regards to how he determines.
Tim wants me on the record here.
I'm trying to jump as little as possible.
I messed up. Richard, man. I brought a vegan in as my moderator.
You did this to yourself. You did this to yourself.
So what I don't, first of all, the reason why I'm hesitant to put my views on the table is because I have a totally small YouTube channel. I'm not an influencer in any way, shape, or form. Like, the way morality is cobbled together is by consensus. And I'm one person. It's like asking me if I voted for, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton and then blaming the election on me, right?
I think it's a little different than that.
Okay. Well, how is it different?
Okay. Well, an election, I mean...
Do you think I'm responsible for the election?
Well, no. I mean, just because you voted for Trump, that doesn't mean you're solely responsible for Donald Trump getting elected.
I didn't vote for Trump, by the way, just to let you know.
Yeah, I mean, they're just two completely different things. Like, killing an animal
I voted for the
taste pleasure is a bit different than voting for a president.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see how you're bridging the gap there.
Well, so what do you want to know? So, okay, you don't like my argument against why I shouldn't say, but what do you want to know?
I think you know that your arguments are actually pretty terrible. Like, you even admit it before you even say them.
Well, some of the arguments are. Some of the arguments are just off the top of my head. I mean, I have some good arguments written out.
I want to hear your best arguments.
This is another reason why I was saying the moral argument is a difficult argument for me, and the reason why I got involved in this at all. Like, I first of all agree with not wanting animals to suffer. Like, I am an animal owner. I went as far as raising praying mantises as pets, and they were insects that I cared about. Like, it always bugged me when I knew that they were dying soon. So, I mean, I feel vegans' pain when it comes to animal suffering. The idea behind the agricultural industry is to try to minimize that suffering and still get what we want, the product, the meat. So,
okay, I
don't think that's a bad system. I am not morally opposed. I am morally opposed to animal suffering in huge ways. I think there should be as many laws as we can get to minimize the animal suffering and still be able to maintain our culture in the way that we have and is working.
this isn't Rainicorn Fantasyland. I mean, if you're against animal suffering, you should go vegan then. Like, how often do you eat meat? Every single day?
No, not at all.
No?
Maybe once a week. Yeah.
No,
I'm not a huge meat eater at all. And I usually eat chicken or fish, which I think is like,
okay, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So you don't eat meat every day. You only eat it once a week, but you can't live without it. Like,
well, I don't want to live without it. It's a liberty thing. It's the same thing as, I mean, you could say that, you don't need Star Wars. You don't need to go see movies. Why do you need movies?
okay,
you don't need a bed either. You could sleep on the floor. I mean, I could sleep on the floor.
Like,
but,
how many animals did Star Wars kill?
okay. but that is your ethical argument. It doesn't bother me that the chickens were killed for me to have a chicken dinner. For me, the trade-off is worth it. Like how much?
So your own personal taste satisfaction has more value than a sentient being's life.
How in your eyes, what amount of human discomfort is acceptable to achieve an end to animal agriculture? Like, we don't really know how much human discomfort is on the other side. I guess you're arguing that there's no discomfort, but I mean, I've talked to people who aren't vegans and they see it as there is a lot of discomfort. They're like, it's hard to be on a vegan diet. There are definitely restaurants that are going to feel a lot of discomfort when they have to change their entire menu.
Okay, so do you want to give them a chance to answer that before you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it's kind of a weird question because like these things are kind of hard to quantify.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Like what I just ask you is like, do you really think your own taste pleasure is worth more than a chicken's life?
See, you're looking at the pebble, and I am looking at the whole beach.
Well, no. Like I mean. If you want to look at the whole beach, okay, what 600,000 Americans per year die of heart disease.
Right,
like that's in the United States.
You're gonna win. I've already given you the health argument. You're gonna win.
Well, again, like, does slowly dying of heart disease does the taste of a chicken breast does that equate? Does that balance those things out?
That's a personal decision. And you're like, you yourself have said,
okay, well,
prostitution is a personal decision.
Okay,
like, I want to cut out my kidney and sell it to this warlord.
Well, no.
That's a personal decision.
No. You weren't talking about personal decisions. You were talking about like well-being and discomfort. Does the well-being, I don't know, like, I guess we'll just call it well-being. Does the well-being of eating a tasty chicken breast balance out the negative effect of slowly dying of heart disease? Like having terrible chest pains and angina.
Hell no.
And then
if you want to keep them, you've got me on that. Well, first of all, I don't feel like I'm qualified. I watched your Jordan Peterson video before we started, and you know your shit on the health stuff. Like, I can't compete with that. Like, I'm more thinking about it from my own, like, the things I would miss, the going out to dinner, with my wife and stuff like that. Thanksgiving dinner with my folks. Like, we have had a tradition.
You can still do that on a vegan diet, man. I just think you're being a baby.
Okay.
Like honestly,
it's not just me that's being a baby. It's like it would be my whole family. Like, there is the social pressure still. We're inside different communities. We experience different social pressures. The social pressure that I would experience is much different than the social pressure that you're experiencing. Totally. And I don't think ignoring that is
well, look, like, I'm sure people had social pressure to own slaves or kill other people. Yeah. Or like, there's some like really shitty area in Africa, like maybe it's Siberia or the Congo, where it's sort of like a passage into manhood to rape a woman. It's just the culture in that particular area. Does that justify doing that?
I don't. Comparing that to eating a chicken, though, I don't think is even close. Like
okay,
if they,
well,
I'm sure they kill and eat chickens there too. But I mean,
I'm not
okay with
that. Like, I'm not saying those two things are the same. I'm just saying
you're using it. You're using it as an
pressure.
example. Yeah, you're using it as an example.
Well,
to say this thing could, like, may not.
Your
be
reasoning
acceptable.
could justify other things. Like, I just don't see social pressure as a reasonable justification. Like, again, if you were the chicken about to be killed for dinner, would you say, well, yeah, I can understand, like, you know, you want to have dinner with your family, and for whatever reason you can't eat the tofurkey chicken or whatever, so yeah, just kill me. Like, you wouldn't accept that, and it's hypocritical.
My dad does this thing where he likes to cook the turkey in a Weber kettle, which is, I know it's kind of weird, but like, I'm just imagining how would that be? Like, do they make the tofurkey look like a turkey? Or, I mean, it gives him such a high to do that too. I mean, there are other things at play. You've already said that you care more for animals than some humans. Not all humans, obviously.
Yeah, quite a lot. Like, I mean, I care more for my wife than any animal, really. So
yeah, obviously. Would you? I'm hesitant to even ask this, but I don't want to ask this because it's kind of a pointed question. Have I answered your questions on, like, what is stopping me? I mean, I know what's stopping me.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it just sounds like selfish, lazy bullcrap that I've heard like a million times before.
It sounds like that to you, but
like, you honestly think those are reasonable justifications?
You're doing these exact same social pressure. You're saying selfish, lazy bullshit, which are all insults. So.
Well, I mean, you're literally saying, well, I'd miss
there is a little bit of
ritual around killing a turkey and eating it with my parents. So, like, I think that's a good enough reason to kill a turkey.
That's so funny. The death ritual. I'm gonna try that on them and see what they say. Just throw it out there and see. I don't know. I didn't come in here. I was gonna say this at the beginning, but I failed to say it. I don't believe that it's possible to change my mind. I don't believe that it's possible for you to change your mind. I think these things change a little bit at a time, obviously.
It's possible to change my mind if I hear a good enough argument. Like, that's why I went vegan in the first place. I think you saying that just shows, like, you're just selfish and lazy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wouldn't call myself a selfish person when it comes to other human beings, but with the chicken, guilty.
Right? Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
Like,
I am very much. I'm a team human guy. I mean, it's team human for me.
For me, it just sounds like you know that your arguments are bad. And
no, I think some of my arguments are very good. Well, the moral arguments are they're moral arguments. They don't convince people. People are not convinced by, like people, the morality comes from within them, comes from their feelings. Like, your morality is coming from your feelings. You've said the empathy for the animals for you is greater than the taste pleasure. That's a feeling. That's not logical.
Well, no. It is logical because we have empathy so that we can form social contracts with other humans, and even to some extent animals. Like, I'd imagine if we didn't have some amount of empathy to other animals, we wouldn't be able to use them to cultivate the land, and we wouldn't have been as successful a species.
Sure.
So this all does, like, it's an evolutionary adaptation, having empathy. But my point is, empathy is the foundation of our moral principles. It doesn't mean like, oh, it's just your fifis. Like, there is a evolutionary reason for this. But
I agree.
Like, again,
the feelings evolve because of evolution.
Yeah, but I mean, you it's almost as if you keep trying to delve into meta ethics. Like why do we think this is right or wrong? Like we can already, huh?
What do you mean by meta ethics? I'm confused by that.
Just like what the nature of morality is. Like what even is it? Like we don't have to discuss that. Like you already agree on basic moral principles, like of human rights. Like it's wrong to kill people. So it's very easy to use that same sort of reasoning why you wouldn't want to kill a human being and use that with an animal, but then your justification is, you know, I just like how my dad makes turkey. Like, okay,
There's
I
more to
like how
life.
my dad cooks human being. It's not a good enough reason.
Would you call the cops if your dad was cooking a human being?
I don't know.
That's
Depends
a
who he
tough one.
killed.
I don't know.
Depends who he killed.
I guess you're right. So I have. Do you want to end it here? I have some moral questions that I was going to ask you. That
Oh
I thought
no!
was just
Shoot!
fun.
Yeah! Shoot!
You want to go for it?
Yeah! Totally.
So you said that you care more about humans and animals. If you could cure cancer or end all animal agriculture, which would you choose?
And all animal agriculture.
Really? Over curing cancer?
Well, like
Curing cancer.
Okay, well, listen.
Okay, so you're definitely in with the animals, man.
Well, no, listen. First of all, I'd imagine we'd eventually come up with a cure for cancer.
Okay, good.
Animals.
You're like, we're almost there.
Well, eating meat is a huge cause of cancer, especially hormone-related
man.
cancers like breast, prostate cancer, and ovarian cancer. It was an Adventist cohort. They found that I think vegan women had something like 67% lower risk of developing breast cancer. So,
Wow,
it's pretty huge.
that's awesome. I never imagined that you would take it in that direction. Yeah, you end animal agriculture and you inadvertently cure cancer.
Well,
That's
not cure, like significantly reduced risk of overall cancer. And like, I mean, eventually, as technology progresses, we'd find a cure anyway.
Okay. If aliens came to Earth with a taste for human flesh and they offered you a deal that they would end all animal agriculture, they would spare your life and 100 of your closest friends, but they wanted you to give them all the humans they could eat, would you take that deal?
No, I'd fight the aliens.
Good
Like
answer.
as much as I hate people generally and have more empathy for animals, like that just sounds really unethical. I wouldn't want to I don't know, enable an alien, a horrible alien species like that.
So if you get your way and people, we no longer have meat, but people still have a hankering for meat. They really want meat. Would it be okay to eat roadkill?
Yeah. Like, don't know if I made a video on this specifically, but I don't really have a problem with freeganism, where you get meat like from roadkill or out of the trash can.
Wow.
Morally speaking, I don't think it's wrong. I think it's like weird and gross, but
yeah. So last question. Many people say alcoholism is wrong, but other people say that alcoholism is a disease. So if we place moral prohibitions on eating meat, what's to stop meat eaters from just claiming that eating meat is some kind of eating disorder?
Like, I don't even understand the question really. Like,
some people are going to cook up some excuse for eating meat, I think.
right, okay.
Like in this world where meat is forbidden, I just think people are going to crave it. People are going to cook up an excuse. And I do agree that people are making excuses for it because they crave the meat. They want the meat, and that's a feeling.
Okay, well, I don't think people have an addiction to meat the same way they have an addiction to alcohol or any other drug. So It would be hard for me to imagine that there'd be people who would just go out and kill animals because they want to eat meat. Hard for me to imagine that, like especially if someone isn't a hunter. Very few people really hunt.
Do you give alcoholics a pass? Because some people just think the alcoholism is a disease thing is bullshit.
Well, I don't think it's a disease. I just think it's an addiction.
Right.
Like I wouldn't call an addiction a disease. Like there are people who are addicted to jerking off. It's not a jerking off isn't a disease. You just have an addiction to jerking off.
Or a failure of willpower. So I don't want to.
I wouldn't really call it. I don't know if I'd call it a failure of willpower. Just people tend to, whenever they have like a deficiency in some part of their life, like they just overcompensate by kind of self-medicating themselves, and they get an addiction to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like I think that's generally where most addictions start. Like there's things like crystal meth where literally everyone just gets addicted to it just because it super physiologically raises your level of pleasure to like a point where you have to keep taking it. But yeah, I think most addiction just starts from you having some sort of deficiency in your life. Like you don't have a girlfriend or something, or you feel like you're a piece of crap, and then you kind of compensate for that with alcohol or something.
Yeah. I don't think we're in danger of compensating with meat.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
That's a good way to look at it. So do you want to call it quits? Do you have like super chats to read or anything?
Let's basically call it quits here. I say you kind of understand that your arguments for eating meat are terrible, and you're just being selfish, and you have, lack of strength of character. That's just what I'm going to say to that. Do you have anything to say?
I would like the voting to be different than it has been in previous debates. I would like the down votes to be for you and the up votes to be for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get more up votes.
I thought the moderator decides who wins.
Oh, no.
What do you think?
I win. I'm the big winner here. Go me. Okay. No, I mean, do you guys have any closing comments you want to make that basically summarize? I mean, VeganGains, you basically just said you think all his arguments are garbage and that he has no willpower. Adam, do you have any?
I just in my defense, I do honestly think a lot of your arguments are not very good either. I think the name the trade argument is specious at best. So, I mean, I'm trying to have like a meeting of the minds instead of just, most of these things devolve into like hurling insults at one another. I'll admit that I think we're sort of on the same path in that we both want a more peaceful world. And I think when people understand how morality works and the root of their morality, and the fact that like a lot of even the dissension that we have in politics now is related a lot to people not understanding one another, from people not knowing how morality works, not accepting that the way they see the world is differently than the way other people see the world, and not making any effort to even understand how those other people see the world. So I think in that realm, you and I have something in common, and it's one of the reasons why I made my first vegan video. So, and I admit that first video, was hyperbolic, and I told you before the stream began, I compared veganism to religion, which isn't exactly fair. I know your video against Jordan Peterson, you think like he comes right out and says it. I didn't come right out and say it, but I definitely hinted at it. That I did that to kind of, capture some people's attention so we could have this conversation that I think has been civil, and I think, has been better, at least good for me, that some of these ideas are out there and hopefully has piqued some people's interest, and maybe not swayed them on the topic of veganism, but maybe made them a little more interested in understanding other people's point of view and not just, retreating to this, I'm right, you're wrong, fuck off. Right?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I like having these sorts of discussions. I just think you have bad arguments.
Well, I can accept that. I can totally accept that.
So before we close this up, can I Adam, can you say one positive thing about VeganGains and his arguments?
What do you mean? First of all, I think I loved the video that you made with the gun and stuff, calling me out. You're like a very creative guy, and I totally respect that. I respect that you as a content creator. I like your stuff. I think you got a bad rap. I think there's a lot of videos out there that say like you're a psychopath and that like you were like, isn't there something going around that like people honestly believe you were like seriously talking about murdering somebody or something like that? So
Yeah, Repsion stomping babies.
all that seems like utter fucking nonsense to me. Like you seem like I saw your debate with Crown T and Bearing, and I mean I think you're a very likable guy. I think that you could sway a lot of people. You have more of the power to be an influencer than I do. I think sometimes when you come out with these arguments, you're causing more people to put up their walls. And I think you could be more like Jordan Peterson is persuading people. He is persuading people very effectively. And I think that you could be as powerful a persuader as that if you apply yourself, if you go down that path. Hey Tim, I sent Tim a video that he liked a lot. I'll ask him to share it with you, and I'll send you a link to it too. You should check it out. Because it really is. It's about arguing really to change things. It's more about arguing than fighting. And I see a lot of fighting going on. So I know fighting draws a crowd, but there's got to be a way to combine those two. I mean, you set this up as we were going to come here and have a gunfight, right? I played along. I put a tank in my thumbnail. I know what was going on here, but there's no animosity here. So
yeah.
All right, so Richard, can you now say something positive about Adam and his arguments?
You don't have to do that, Richard.
Give it a shot.
Is I don't know. Like I just
you don't have to do it. It feels funny. Just
I feel a
Tim's
sense
being
of dishonesty coming from you. Like I honestly think you genuinely understand that your arguments are poor and you don't really have a good justification for killing and eating animals, and you just come up with these bad arguments because that's the only way that you can kind of justify it to yourself. Or like, you know, maybe you're just incredibly selfish and you have no ability to empathize with these animals. But I sense, like, I get a sense of dishonesty. Like, you don't seem dumb enough to really think that your arguments are actually legitimate, good arguments.
I'm honest enough.
I hate to hear you insult them.
Yeah, I think I'm honest enough to know, and I have said a few times that I know that they're bad arguments. Yeah. So, I mean, how am I being dishonest?
Oh, just with like when you claim that, yeah, like I have social pressure, you know, with my family.
That's a totally honest argument. How is that not an honest argument? I mean,
there's a difference between honesty and thinking that's an actual good justification. Like, do you actually think that's a good justification for eating meat?
You don't need a good justification. You just need a justification. Who needs a good justification?
Like, well, no. Do you actually think that's a good justification?
Social pressure? Yes, I think it's a great justification. I think it's a justification that works on most things. Yeah.
Okay, so if I had social pressure to kill somebody, rape somebody, like have a slave,
it happens every day. Happens every day.
You think that's a good enough justification?
It's human nature. I mean, I'm being honest about the way humans are.
Okay, well,
I mean, I'm the one that's looking at every single one of these moral foundations.
Look, there's a difference between something being the way it is and whether it should be that way. Do you think it should be that way, where people have a justification to do something horrible because of social pressure?
The way it should be and the way it is.
Well, they're two different things. I mean, I'm asking you.
Sure, I think we should all have unicorns and fly around in the sky. Like, I think we should all live forever. I think we should all, you know, Like I can wish and wish and wish and wish and think about how it should be, or I can focus on the way that it is and try to have the best world that we can have out of that.
Okay, like this is where I think you're being totally dishonest.
How am
because
I
you
being
can't-
dishonest?
You, like
How
you
am
can't
I
even
being
answer.
dishonest?
You can't even really answer the question directly. Like I'm asking
What
you.
is
Do you
what
think-
is the question?
Well, I'm asking you. Do you think social pressure is a legitimate argument for, like, or legitimate justification for doing something horrible? And you're basically saying, well, that's the way it is.
No, it's not.
Okay, so it's not. Okay,
I'm saying it's a justification that people use, but it's not a good one. And
Okay, so
the
then you
reason
have-
that they use it is because we're animals.
right. Okay, so then you'd have to agree that social pressure to eat meat isn't a good argument.
It isn't a good argument. No, not at all.
Okay,
But
all right.
I've said my argument
That's all I wanted to hear.
are not great. But I
Alright.
just the only thing that bugs me is that you think I'm being dishonest. And I'm not being
Okay.
dishonest, man.
Okay.
Like
a
there
left
is this
word I
prince
can't-
there is this principle of charity, okay? Like at some point somebody like it's very easy to retreat back to other people are being dishonest, but it's a very cynical way to look at the world. I find there are dishonest people in the world, I'll give you that, but I find people would much rather be honest than dishonest, and that a lot of times what we perceive as dishonesty is just stupidity. So I'm willing to give you that my arguments aren't great. The reason my arguments aren't great is because what really is going on is I don't want to stop eating meat. Okay. At an emotional level, I don't want to stop eating meat. I don't have empathy for the fish and the chickens. I'm being honest about that. But
Right.
as human beings in this social game that we play, that I have this social pressure, I have to come up with an argument for you.
Right. Well, I
Because
mean,
that's what we do as humans.
I literally have zero empathy for
Mhm.
infant children. Like, I can't remember the technical term, but I have fear of children and I have hatred of children. Like, I think it's pedophobia, and there's something else. It's an actual medical, like, it's some
What are you going to
psychological
do when you
condition.
have a kid?
I got a vasectomy.
Really?
Yeah, I sterilized
Holy-
myself. I have
that's-
a video of it on my channel.
Wow, that's serious, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I hope
like,
they can reverse that. I'm telling you, there's still hope.
well, I'm never gonna have a child. Like I hate children so much. Like you literally don't understand. Like people literally don't understand how much I hate children, and that I don't see that as a justification to kill and eat children. Like, do you understand? Like how just because?
But I don't hate chickens.
Right, I
don't
know,
hate
but
chickens.
I don't
I'm
have. I
indifferent.
understand. I understand, but do you understand?
I love chickens.
Not a
They
logical
are tasty.
justification. Like,
That-
do you understand how just
lot-
because you have a lack of empathy for a creature, that's not actually a logical justification, or like a
it's not
moral
logical.
justification for, killing them? It's just that.
Morality and logic are completely different things.
Well, I understand, but I mean, you do agree that you have, moral guidelines that you follow. Like it's wrong to kill a human being. Like you'd never rape
Yes.
a woman, right? So
Totally.
okay, so going from there, you don't actually have a logical justification to kill animals. It's just that
No, I don't.
right. Okay. Like that's great.
But I don't think you have a logical justification for not killing animals. Like what you're
Yeah.
talking about is not logical. You're saying
Totally
I
is.
have more empathy for the chicken. How is that logical?
Like that's my own. Well, that has nothing to do with logic. I'm just talking
No,
about my own
so we're
personal
both-
feelings.
So we're both being honest here then.
Well, yeah. I'm just talking about my own personal feelings. It's not that I think humans shouldn't have any rights. I'm just saying, like my own personal feelings. I generally have more empathy for animals than for people. But that doesn't mean I give human beings like less respect than animals typically. Like I got into this fight with a big fat woman the other day, but generally speaking, I treat people with respect because that's the way I want to be treated. And
What was the
my
fight
own
about?
personal feelings.
You can't throw a nugget out there like that.
Oh, okay. So I just bought me and my wife e-bikes, and we were riding them around.
What
the
is an
city.
e-bike?
Electric bicycle.
Oh, really?
They're not
Oh,
really
man.
bicycles. They're more like they're more like limited speed motorcycles, but technically
fast?
they're e-bikes.
I've seen those around LA, and man,
you're only supposed to travel 32 kilometers per hour on the road with those, but they can reach 70 to 80 kilometers depending on rider weight. And like legally speaking, they're bicycles. So you can go on the sidewalk and park it up next to a bicycle lock, just like a bicycle. And some big, huge fat lady started complaining, "You're not supposed to ride that here. Are you kidding me?" And then I just yelled at her, called her a big, dumb, fat bitch. And I told her, "Do you think you can take me on?" Like,
oh my God.
I was just ready. So I flipped out like pretty hard on her. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, when I meet somebody in public, like I treat them with respect because that's the way I want to be treated, even though I have less empathy and like really less respect for people. I don't know how to word that exactly, but I just I don't have great feelings towards human beings in general, but that doesn't mean I treat them with less respect than I treat myself.
You already said you'd fight against the aliens. I'd be right there. I'd be right there with you.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a separation between personal feelings and like my moral values.
Is there really?
There's somewhat of a separation. Well,
one of the things that bothered me one of the things that I really liked about the Kraut and Tea debate that you had with Bering is Kraut was, and I used this in a video, Kraut was saying, you know, we debate these things. We debate them out. That's how we come to the consensus for what our moral contract is going to be, what our social contract was going to be. And you said, but you're not having the debate.
Yeah.
And it rang so true with me. Right. And I mean, I didn't want to come in here and like not have that debate. This is what I was talking about in the book on morality. Like they're starting to separate it out where ethics is the content. And we're really talking about the content here. Like, should we as a society not eat meat? I mean, we did it with slavery, right? I don't know how Canada got rid of slavery or if they ever even had. I mean,
there was slavery in Canada, but we abolished it before the United States. That's why a lot of slaves fled to Canada.
But Tim was saying that they paid people for the slaves, that the government bought the slaves.
Well, I think that's what they did in England. I don't know what they did in Canada because we talked about England and France, and I have no idea what they did in France either. I could be wrong. Fuck do I know? I just know they didn't have a civil war over it.
Yeah, totally. Well, we like Americans have this. Americans suffer from the whole liberty thing more than most people do. Like, we don't like people telling us what to do. We don't like people telling us we can't eat
I totally
chicken.
believe that.
We don't like people telling us we can't eat iguana if we want. Yeah. So, I mean, but it is what it is. I'm trying to be honest that just it is feelings, and I don't have a good argument, but I don't know that there is a good argument to be had. So, Tim, we've been talking for another 20 minutes here because Tim did that cringy thing with asking you to say something nice about me.
I know. Well, I was going to end it with you guys saying something nice about me. I
want to go on the record that I didn't put him up to that stupid thing.
No, no one gives me my bad ideas but me.
I sincerely like your content. I think that you have terrible, fucking stupid ideas about veganism. And I'm on the record that I won this debate, hands down. Thumbs up the video if you think that I won. Thumbs down the video if you think that Richard won. And we'll tally the votes.
Yeah, right. I think people are just going to like the video. Yeah.
No, but it's really only fair. I mean, if you can't make a moral argument why it's more fair to have the thumbs up for me, then we should just do it my way. I'm playing with you. I'm playing with you. It's your channel, man. You do it your way. So should I log off now and you can read your super chats? You want me to stick around for that stuff? Or?
Yeah, you can just log off. Thanks for doing the debate with me.
Yeah,
though.
thank you for
your channel. And,
thank you for hosting me. And thanks for the killer video that you did ahead of time. So,
all right, no problem. And
thanks, guys.
For moderating, Tim.
My pleasure. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
All right,
take care, you guys.
All right, so I'm just gonna read off the super chats now. The Emoji Game donated $2. Check out my channel. Also, how big is your dick? Okay, so check out the Emoji Games channel, and my dick is pretty big. I make girls wince. Let's put it that way. More Velocity donated $2. Are you reading super chats after the debate? I think I typed something in the chat before. I don't even know why I'm reading this right now. But thank you very much for the $2 donation. Furukagi donated $5. Hey Richard, greetings from Australia. Hope you've been well. Wondering what your thoughts were on Rich Piana's death. I made a video before he died. Like really, the guy burnt candles at both ends. He had a mental problem, that's for sure. He's even admitted to it on camera that he has like bigorexia, which is like the not so technical term for body dysmorphic disorder. Like unfortunately, he wasn't able to get help for his problem, and it killed him. I met him in person, and he's a really nice guy. He's actually nicer in person than he is on his YouTube channel. Like it's a shame, and I think eventually he likely would have actually gone vegan. Like before he died, he was actually eating rice and vegetables with almost every meal, except like for dinner he'd have some meat. So it's just a shame. He's a really nice guy. I don't think he really deserved what happened to him, but like that's how things played out. Like I hope people learn from that, get help for your problems, whether it's body dysmorphic disorder or anything else. Don't let it control you and, kill you. Luke Robbins donated £2. Does the rat become a coon? I don't know what you mean by that. Does the rat become a coon? Do you understand, Jasmine?
No.
No? I don't know what you mean by that question. Saw a rat the other night when I was walking Lucy, and I also saw a few raccoons. But thanks for the donation. Ryle Lamora donated $5. I'm vegan in college. I need help since I can't cook here, and they offer one vegan option on campus. I'm having a hard time reaching micronutrient goals. Okay, micronutrient goals. I don't know how much of a budget you have since you're in college. Easiest thing to get would be Vega. Let me just look up. It's a Vega supplement. I'm just going to check their website real quick just so I can give you the exact name. They make it's not exactly a meal replacement supplement, but it has a lot of micronutrients. Vega 1, that's the supplement. It's a bit expensive, but I mean, depending on how much money you have, that would be one of my #1 recommendations. It's like a protein shake, but it has a lot of micronutrients in it. It has 50% of your daily value of vitamins and minerals. So I think that would be an easy way to get in your micronutrients if you can't cook. A really simple, straightforward way. The way I used to take that is I just have oatmeal, mix that in with my oatmeal, add soy milk. Like you don't have to cook anything, and you get a lot of vitamins and minerals. So I'd check that out. If you're on a real budget, I'd take a look at hemp protein. Hemp protein is pretty nutrient dense as well. Also, just nuts and seeds in general, like hemp seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds. Like those are very nutrient dense sources of nutrition, and you don't have to cook anything. So that would be my general recommendation for you. Luke Robbins donated another £5. Islamic law says you can chop off a hand. Yeah, again, that's the issue with relying on social contract, because social contract is pretty much meaningless. Like, I mean, it would allow you to do anything, which is why empathy is the cornerstone for morals. Like, if somebody breaks the social contract, well, Okay, well, what are you supposed to do if they break the social contract? Okay, they stole a watch. Chop off their hand, like kill them? It doesn't make any sense. That's why empathy is the cornerstone of morals. And thank you for the donation. The Arena Uncensored donated $2. Felons can vote in the U.S. Dumb fuck. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I've never heard of a law banning criminals from voting. Like, I know, like, criminals are banned from owning firearms, but I've never heard of criminals being banned from voting. That sounded really bizarre to me. More Velocity donated $10. Dr. Greger says calcium supplements are something we should avoid. They increase our risk of all-cause mortality. Should we then avoid plant milks since they're basically a liquid calcium supplement? No. From what I understand, megadosing calcium, that can cause arterial calcification. Imagine taking like a pure calcium supplement, which is just essentially chalk. It's not too great for your system. Plant-based milks, it's much more easily absorbed. I haven't seen any association with soy milk consumption and risk of all-cause mortality, so I'd say no. But I do know for a fact megadosing with calcium supplements does increase risk of artery calcification, which is a huge risk factor for heart disease. I haven't really researched the topic too much myself, though, but I haven't seen any association between plant-based milk consumption and risk of death, especially soy milk. Soy milk seems to be protective against things like breast cancer. More Velocity donated another $10. I'm fairly efficient at arguing against people when it comes to animal ethics, but food chain, though, trips me up. I know it's an appeal to nature fallacy, but could you flesh that out for me? Well, if you're going to say, like, food chain, though, you're basically arguing, like, you're basically making a might makes right argument. Like, okay, food chain, it's a hierarchical structure. An animal that's higher up on the food chain has more power over another animal, therefore it's okay to kill that animal since it's weaker than you. You're just higher on the food chain. Well, okay, certain countries are more, or certain governments are more powerful than other countries or groups of people. Therefore, what the Nazis did to the Jews is perfectly acceptable because might makes right. So there's a few different ways you can tackle that. You can also talk about how humans haven't evolved to eat meat, but I'd tackle it from a might makes right sort of argument standpoint. That's how I deal with that argument. And thank you very much for the donations. Vex Spice donated $5. If morals are arbitrary, I suppose there's ultimately no non-arbitrary reasons not to suicide bomb FriendEd's family. Well, at least I can eat flesh. Yeah, he, like, whenever he was sort of backed into a corner, he'd, like, I'd say, so, like, why is it okay to shoot a cow in the head and slit their throats open? What are morals? You know, like, where do they come from? It's all just arbitrary. It's as if he just wanted to say morals don't even exist, but then at the same time, like, he agreed that he believes in certain moral principles. So he was pretty inconsistent with his arguments. And thank you for the donations. Luke Robbins donated another £2. He says, no, you soften over time. That must have been in context with something else. So I don't know what you really meant there, but thank you for the donation anyway. Tony W. donated $2. Say Hi Jai Ministry. Okay, Hi Jai Ministry. I think that's how you pronounce that. All right, there you go. And thank you very much for the $2 donation. Kyle's Wild World donated $2. Convert Cody's Lab. Convert Cody's Lab? I don't know what you mean by that. Is that a YouTube channel? I'll Google that and see what I can find, if Cody's Lab is a YouTube channel. Thanks for the donation. Philectual just donated €5. Check out my channel and go vegan, morons. Definitely check out Philectual's channel. He's a really cool guy. He helped moderate the chat for this debate. And he has some pretty decent videos as well. So definitely check out Philectual's channel. And he was nice enough to donate €5 as well. Georgia donated $10. What are the best sources to learn about nutrition, like books or people you seem to know so much? Nutritionfacts.org would be a great place to learn, especially when it comes to disease prevention sort of side of things. It's just such a great resource. Like, you can Google pretty much any topic and then get information on it. Some other YouTube channels, I guess. Mike the Vegan's great. John Venus is also good if you want to learn about like vegan bodybuilding and stuff like that. Brian Turner on YouTube, another good YouTube channel if you want to learn some stuff about like vegan bodybuilding sort of nutrition. Plant Positive, I don't think he's uploading anymore, but he has some really, really great videos. Older channel, but still really great videos, Plant Positive. So those are some sources I'd recommend. Dr. Michael Greger also has the book, How Not to Die. Great book. And thanks for the donation. Oswald Tentoria donated $2. We need to play Marvel vs. Capcom. That's coming out soon. Marvel vs. Capcom 4. I think they're calling it Marvel vs. Capcom Ultimate. I'm a little on the fence on getting it, but I probably will get it. I think it's a little overpriced, especially since they're not going to have any X-Men characters, which is total bullshit. I guess because Fox owns the rights to it, and it's stupid. But yeah, I'm probably gonna start gaming more soon anyway, so we'll see. I'll probably get Marvel vs. Capcom, and yeah, maybe I can play some subscribers on it. Parth just donated $10. Greetings from Texas. Has Jordan Peterson responded to you yet? No, he hasn't responded. I haven't heard a peep from him. So I don't know, maybe I'm just not on his radar. Maybe he hates me and doesn't want to give me any attention. I'm not sure. It's hard for me to imagine that, you know, a video really calling him out that got over 100,000 views, that really pissed off his fans, he wouldn't have heard about it by now. So I don't know, maybe he's just being like a little pussy and not saying anything about it. I'm not sure. And thank you very much for the donation. But I'd love to debate Jordan Peterson, but you know, people like FriendEd, you know, the low-hanging fruit, those are the only people who are willing to debate me. Garav just donated 40 rupees, and he says, squiggly lines are rupees, love from India. Thank you very much for the donation, and now I know that the squiggly lines are rupees. Appreciate that. Kyle's Wild World just donated $5. Yeah, he has 1 million subs and is science-based, so he should be possible to convert to a vegan. I think you're talking about Jordan Peterson. Does Jordan Peterson have 1 million subs now? I'm just going to check that out. Well, okay, JP has 432. I'm not sure if you're talking about JP, but yeah, I just don't understand why these people have such a hard time with animal rights and vegan ethics. It's really bizarre. And thank you very much for the donation. Maximilian Korzakowski just donated $10. Hey Richard, 3-month vegan here. Love your channel and everything you do for veganism. Keep up the good work. Let's end animal agriculture in our lifetime. Thank you very much for the donation, Maximilian, and totally agree. I'm sure we will end animal agriculture in our lifetime, unless I get hit by a car tomorrow. But I'm pretty sure in my lifetime it'll come to an end. Chris Fuentes just donated $5.15. Debate with Cody's Lab would actually be really good. The guy is pretty smart and innovative. I'd be interested in his arguments if he'd be up for it. Okay, I'll check out Cody's Lab. I'm guessing that's a YouTube channel. I'll see if he's made any videos on animal rights or relating to that anyway. And maybe we'll see. I'd love to debate someone who's reasonably intelligent. I don't think FriendEd is the dumbest guy or even the most dishonest guy I've debated yet, but I'd like a bit more of a challenge. And thanks for the donation. Joe Riso just donated $2. Lost respect for your I hate kids comment. I hate children. I don't, like, I can't help it. Like, I don't think I'm mean to kids. I just avoid children whenever I can. And I mean, I got a vasectomy, so I'd never have children and end up abusing them. So like, I think you should have some amount of respect for that. But thank you for the donation anyway. It's kind of weird that you donate $2 and tell me that you lost respect for me because I hate children. But thanks anyway.
That was anything unknown.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I've been pretty clear that I hate children for quite some time. The Banza, I believe that's how you pronounce that, donated $2. Thank you very much for the donation. He didn't say anything, but thanks much for the donation. BB Fellies donated $10. Can you say hi, Brittany and Amarian? Hi, Brittany and Amarian. I hope I pronounced that last name properly. But there you go, and thank you very much for the donation. Okay, I think that's about it for the super chats. Yeah, that's it for the super chats. Thank you everyone for checking out the debate, and special thanks to everyone who donated in the super chat. Helps me out a lot. So for upcoming videos, I should have like a response to Lane Norton out soon. I want to make another response to Jordan Peterson. There's there's some other few little things that have been happening in the fitness industry, like CT Fletcher, that I just missed that I still want to comment on. PewDiePie said the N-word, and I do want to get a video talking about that out tomorrow. So that should be my upcoming videos in the near future. Also, the campaign for my t-shirts has ended, but I'm going to set up a permanent store on Teespring, and I should be able to have more products out, like sweatshirts and stuff like that, and women's t-shirts. A lot of people were asking for that. And I'm also going to make some new t-shirt designs as well very soon. So that's about that. Someone else just donated in the super chat. Matthew Johnson donated $2, and he says, clean your damn desk. Yeah, I will. It's Jasmine always complains to me about my desk being dirty, so I'll definitely get on that soon. Thanks for the donation, by the way.
Damn right.
Yeah. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the debate, and as always, keep making those vegan gains.